So 2019, we buy right in December.
Well, how much was it? So how big was this house?
1,200 square feet.
But it's in Bush Park. So, I mean, what did you pay?
We ended up getting it. It was December of 2018. January is when we move in. And we got it for $260,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now it's probably worth what, like 500 or something?
Somewhere, yeah, probably 4 something.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez, yeah.
Because we ended up doing a basement remodel. So the full basement downstairs was about 900 square feet, and
nice.
We added a bedroom, bathroom.
Okay.
And that's pretty much that house, that project, and. Yeah, since then we've kind of just been chipping away, trying to partner up with people to do projects or doing projects ourselves whenever we can, or honestly getting houses that maybe we can't take the project on, but we know investors that can,
right?
And doing that kind of thing, but just consistently looking at different opportunities because we are just full in, right?
Hey everybody, thanks so much for tuning in to episode 41 of the Realized Gains podcast. I'm your co-host Jordan Lee, a mortgage lender based in Portland, Oregon, and I'm licensed to do business in about 8 states, and I invest in single family homes.
And I'm Stephen Tran. I'm an Oregon and Washington realtor, and I invest in multifamily and short-term rentals. And Jordan, who did we have the pleasure of interviewing today?
Oh, we had a really great interview today with a friend of mine in Salem here. His name is Kevin Peña. And he's got a kind of interesting background. Like, he grew up in Mexico. He was in politics there, and did a couple of other things before getting into real estate, right?
Yeah, and then I believe he started at EXP as an agent and has a team of 8 agents?
Yeah, and he does his focus on investing right now is remodels that are buy and hold.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, he has a really great story, interesting path to real estate, and just check it out and follow in.
Hey guys, welcome to the Realized Gains podcast. I'm Stephen Tran.
And I'm your co-host Jordan Lee, and we're super excited to have a special guest here, Kevin Peña. Kevin, if you don't mind, will you just give us a quick introduction into your journey into real estate, like what field you came from and what brought you here?
Yeah, so, I mean, crazy background, but really before getting into real estate or really coming to the United States, I was in Mexico and I was working politics. And then I transitioned over to coming into the United States on a student visa, got my degree in business. And after graduating, my wife and I were just looking at different options. We ended up moving.
You grew up in Mexico?
Grew up in Mexico for the most part. So a little bit of a split. So from like the age of 0 to 5, I'm in Mexico. My parents bring me to the United States. Mm-hmm. I end up graduating high school here.
Okay.
And then I move out of the country. I go to Europe for a little bit. Then I go to Mexico. In Mexico is where I did everything. I managed casinos at some point.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned that. Yeah.
And then I got into politics. And then after that, that's when I landed back in the United States, met my wife. Now we got married. We moved to Texas because we were super interested in figuring out how to save money, how to make money, and how to really kick off our lives together. Mm-hmm. Texas, cost of living was a lot less expensive. So we go there and we land in Waco, Texas, which was like HGTV capital with Chip and Joanna Gaines going on. And so
what year was this about?
This was 2016?
Okay.
2016. So it was like things were popping off. Chip and Joanna Gaines were just expanding. They had just done the silos. Mm-hmm. And so it was really kicking off. And so I got really interested in how do we flip houses? How do we invest in real estate? How do we do that? Because that seems like that's the answer, right? That's the way to do it. And so I got a job in sales, started off, and I started making some money. We were doing pretty well. And so then I was like, we got to start making some moves. And I think that's the biggest thing is we also saw it as a huge thing to take on. But we knew that if we were really conservative about how we were spending our money and we had that goal in mind, that it wasn't really about how difficult it was just about making sure that we were planning correctly so that when an opportunity came, we were ready for it, and not being afraid to do it, right? Jumping in and planning or mitigating our risk tolerance to know, hey, this is somewhere where we feel comfortable. We still have our jobs. We still have everything going on, but let's try it and learn as we go, right? With assessing our risk. And so when we were in Texas, we really wanted to do it there, but we got pregnant. And so we decided, okay, we have to make a decision here. Do we want to stay here, or do we want to go back to Oregon where her family is, my family was? And we decided Oregon was the way to go. So we moved back, and we actually bought a house before even moving back, sight unseen. And it was a for sale by owner because my wife's stepmom was walking by Bush Park neighborhood, sees a for sale sign, like one of the signs you see on a car, on the back of a car when it's being sold. And we called her, and she was a mortgage loan officer that had a rental portfolio, and she was about to retire, so she was just getting rid of it. And so they just done some pretty decent remodels to it, like the main thing. So we knew we were going into it. The furnace was good, the roof was good, but cosmetically the house was still kind of looking like a rental.
Sure.
But the location was great, and so we decided, okay, it's less expensive than we were planning on spending. It's a smaller house, but it's in a great location. It could turn into a great rental down the road. Does it make sense? Let's do it. And so that was our first step into it. And because we did that, I saw it like, okay, I'm transitioning back. I had a sales job. What do I want to do now? I really want to get invested into real estate. I want to know as much as I can. And so that's literally, I got my paternity leave from my job. Well, when we came back over here, and during my paternity leave, I was just like, full on, how do I get my real estate license in 3 months?
What were you doing in sales? Like, which company were you working
So I was working for T-Mobile.
For T-Mobile, okay.
Yeah, so it was kind of like a tech sale, kind of a job. And same thing. I mean, I liked my job that I was doing. I was making decent money, but I didn't have freedom, and I didn't see myself long-term being there. I wanted to do something for myself, and I thought real estate was that exactly. And I actually kept that job for a while I was kind of getting my business going and running. And it was an easy thing to do. I just started more part-time hours there. But then we started really focusing on saving money, being lendable, and finding opportunities off market with the way we were doing things to try to acquire as much real estate as possible, as fast as possible.
So you got the first property, you bought it as a primary
residence.
And then how did you manage to do that? Did you just had you had money saved for down payment, or?
Yeah, we had money saved up for down payment. We were being super frugal. In Texas, cost of living's pretty cheap. So we just saved up as much as we could. Britt was working too. My wife was working too. She was working a nonprofit job, so not making a bunch of money, but she had an income. When she transitioned over to Oregon, she just stopped working. And so it was my income. And back then we were in a spot where, I mean, that house was inexpensive, so super affordable.
Yeah, this was what, 2017?
2017. Okay. So super affordable. Actually 2019.
Oh, 2019.
Yeah, because we lived in Texas for a couple years.
Okay.
So 2019 we buy right in December.
Well, how much was it? So how big was this house?
1,200 square feet.
But it's in Bush Park. So, I mean, what did you pay?
We ended up getting it. It was December of 2018. January is when we move in, and we got it for $260,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now it's probably worth what, like 500 or something?
Somewhere, yeah, probably for something.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez, yeah.
Because we ended up doing a basement remodel. So the full basement downstairs was about 900 square feet, and so we added a bedroom, bathroom.
Okay.
And that's pretty much that house, that project, and yeah, since then we've kind of just been chipping away, trying to partner up with people to do projects or doing projects ourselves whenever we can, or honestly getting houses that maybe we can't take the project on, but we know investors that can,
right?
And doing that kind of thing, but just consistently looking at different opportunities because we are just full in, right?
Yeah, I have a question about this house where you remodeled the basement and added the bedroom, bathroom. Like, this is your first project, right? Yep. Can you kind of talk about that experience and how you learned?
Yeah, so that
was it already dug out?
Everything was good. Height was good. I think the most labor that I did is we ended up adding an egress window, and the egress window is pretty large. I think it's like a 4 foot tall window by 3 feet, so it's a pretty large opening.
And for our listeners, what's the idea of like adding an egress window?
So the idea of an egress window is that you can actually have the city say that permit the house for having an additional bedroom. And if you don't have an egress window, you can't necessarily call it a bedroom or an actual living space, because if in the case an emergency, something happens, if there isn't 2 egresses or an egress from each bedroom, then it's not considered that way. So for permitting, that's what we had to do.
I think it needs to be big enough to fit a fireman with like their full gear on, so they can get in for an emergency.
Yeah. And then for exiting purposes, like there has to be a certain windowsill, and you guys have to check your own local ordinances, but it has to be like low enough to where you can climb out of it, or most people could, and then you'll have a window well, which is basically where you're going to climb out of from a basement, and then you have to be able to climb back onto just level ground.
So did you have to dig through foundation to do that? Or?
So we cut through foundation.
Yeah.
So we kind of hired everybody separately. So I acted as like the general contractor, the GC, and we went through the permitting process ourselves. So we learned a lot talking to the city about what we needed to do. And so that kind of guided us through. And I mean, all of this went a lot slower than it could have gone if we just hired a GC. But I think that learning experience also helped us, so that when we have hired GCs in other projects, we at least have a reference to what things should look like and what they should be. And so that helped us out. And I think the most laborious thing that I did was the exterior. We did all the landscaping with a buddy of mine. So a lot of digging, a lot of hard labor, but nothing super technical. And then when it came to doing the egress window, I dug out a 4 foot deep by like 4 feet wide hole. And if you've ever dug that much dirt, it is not easy.
Yeah, I've done an egress window at my sister's house, and then we put one of those big metal like vent wells.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, that was not fun at all.
No, it's a lot of digging. You're gonna get some blisters, but it's all worth it at the end. You feel pretty good about it, and we got it in, and it looks great, and so super neat. But that was pretty much it, and a lot of the other stuff was just kind of pretty simple stuff. I think the biggest nuances with a basement is keeping it dry, what type of materials to use down there, and how to make it look decent without spending a bunch of money, because basements don't have the same amount of like value as you would have on a normal floor.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't overspend. That's the biggest mistake I think a lot of people make, is they try to get everything perfect. And you're going to find a lot of like foundation restoration guys that will try to make, or like promise to make your basement super like dry, and you'll never have any moisture in your basement. And I think for some spaces it's worth it, but there's other solutions. And when when we got bids for that, it was just like, it blew our budget out of the water. So it was not worth it for us to do that. We maintained, a creative outlook on it, and kind of try to find a way to find a more economic solution than spending $30,000-$40,000 on getting the basement waterproofed by a professional company.
Okay, so you had already had some water intrusion down there, because this is very common in our climate, right?
It's super normal, and I think that's the one thing too, is like if you're getting into a house where the basement was never redone, never updated, wait a season, right? Like wait a season, see kind of what can happen, where the moisture's coming in, and then do research on how you can fix that specific issue that you're having, right? Because sometimes it could be it's coming up from the floor, or it's coming up maybe just from one exterior wall.
Okay.
And if it's coming, depending on where it's coming from, there's different solutions for it. And so you don't have to have a full mitigation system for the whole basement if there's no water on one side of the basement.
So what did you guys end up doing?
So we did some painting or primer, basically. We made sure that actually in the exterior of the house, all of the water that was being collected in the gutters was actually going away from it, because a lot of it was this one gutter that was coming down, and it was so close to one of the walls that all that water would just build up when there was a lot of rain. And then that area would have so much pressure from the water that water would go through basically the seam of the foundation wall and then the flooring.
You just find the path of least resistance.
Resistance. And so we were getting water there. So we ended up installing a sump pump on that side of the house, ceiling, and that space is a space that is not finished.
Okay.
We just didn't spend the money there, and it's under the staircase coming down into the basement. And so that area is an area where we just have as much as we can there, and then the materials that we used for the inside of the basement are materials that have more resistance to moisture.
Got it.
Right. So
Like the drywall for like the bathrooms, like that type of drywall, the green board, I think.
Green board, yeah. And another thing we did that was super important is because down the road we plan on having both spaces rented potentially.
Yeah.
And so we did soundproofing in the on the ceiling.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So and there's insulation that is more soundproof than others, but look it up. There's different ways that you can do that.
So I'm assuming it's, one of those houses where there's a back door entrance, and that's the one that you would use as a separate entrance.
Yeah,
Nice.
and it could be that way. Yeah, but there's a door from inside and there's a door from outside. So either way, if you wanted to connect it, yeah.
You mentioned something earlier about not overspending on a basement and the value. Can you talk a little bit about how subterranean value is less? Because a lot of times, I have clients that are assuming the value of their house just based purely on the square footage. But can you talk a little bit about why subgrade square footage is different?
Yeah, I think it's still not going to be normal living space. You're still underground. So for most people that are looking for a house and are going to spend, a decent amount of money on a house, if you're looking at a house that's maybe $500,000, $600,000 and is the exact same square footage, both are priced the same, but one is actual square footage inside the house compared to having to go down to a basement. Most buyers, I think if you just think about, I think that's always something that you have to have in mind when you're investing and you're buying properties to resell or to rent out, is you have to think about how the typical buyer would look at it, right? Or the typical renter. How much usability is there going to be in this space, and compare it to the other spaces that are similar. And so price it out, right? If there's a house that doesn't have a basement but has the same square footage, I don't think you can compete necessarily when it's a basement, because like I said, you're still underground. You're still retrofitting essentially a space that was not supposed to be livable into a livable space.
Correct.
And so people are going to know that, and they're going to feel that.
Yeah, it's sometimes noticeable. You have like the vents and everything that you have to drywall around. It's pretty obvious that it was a basement. Less natural light.
And I know from the lending and appraisal perspective, anytime a bunch of your square footage is subgrade, it's going to get docked just price wise. And not only that, is that they're always going to compare you to other homes that have that same like basement. Or subgrade setup.
Yep.
Because it's just a better comparison from their perspective, and so that can sometimes cause your comps to like not be your next door neighbor.
Totally.
If everyone doesn't have basements or whatever in the area.
100%.
Yeah, they might just throw a fixed value for, okay, their basement's done, let's add another $50,000, but they're comparing it to other, like you said, houses with unfinished basements.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the smartest thing. For us, it's a house that we're turning into a rental, so it wasn't something that we wanted to like put the nicest finishes in, but I think that most people should think about it that way, even if you're thinking about reselling. Right. Is give people maybe a blank canvas, but a finished space, right? So don't go above and beyond with super nice finishes, just kind of rental grade, and then let people, even if you are selling it, come in and upgrade it as they'd like.
Right. Yeah, because it's more about having that space, and if you can rent it out, perfect, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Did this place end up being under budget? Or at budget?
Yeah, I think it was under budget where we were at with it. And there's still some things that we probably would want to do. Mm-hmm. But for now, it's a finished space. Everything's there. And just like I said, so it's been good. And I think we ran on a really good market. And so we have the benefit of that. So it made it great. For our first one, I think I would definitely do things differently if it was my second go around. And I think there's a cost to learning the things that I learned because I took it on as a GC, right? So delays, timing, all that stuff that we could have done quicker, maybe gotten into other deals or put our money into other things. But when it's your first deal, I think taking it slow and learning as much as you can in the process is it really is like.
Well, plus it's your primary, you're living there, so it's not like you're paying hard money fees and everything.
And it's in the basement too. And like you're not taking over like the space you're living in, so like you're comfortably sleeping. You have your bathrooms and your sinks and everything.
There's no pressure of like, oh man, we need to get this done because there's construction going on in my bedroom. It's just kind of it was super flow, and I was also ramping up my business, so. Yeah.
So are you still there then?
We're still there right now. Yep. And we're kind of just, honestly, the main reason that we're there and it makes it really, really nice is that we have Britt's parents across the park from us.
Oh, perfect.
And so right now with our 3-year-old, it's like we've thought about going to different places. We thought about buying another house maybe in the Bush Park area, but nothing has come up that's interesting enough. We have a couple neighbors where like, hey, when you guys move, we're ready to buy your house.
It's so interesting about this neighborhood because like I have a client just the same thing. It's like they've been looking for 3 years in that specific neighborhood and like won't look anywhere else.
I don't know this neighborhood. It's Bush Park in Salem. Is it like super prestigious?
It's just so very close to downtown, but far enough away where you're not in downtown, but you have Salem Hospital 3, 4, 5 blocks away. You have South Salem High School right across the street, basically, if you're in that area. And then you have Bush Park, which is one of the largest inner city parks in Salem. And then you have Willamette University that's right there in the middle of it all. So
easy access to the 5.
Everything is right there. I think it's an understated neighborhood because it's older homes.
Yeah.
But I think as time goes on, as Salem downtown area gets developed and grows, and that neighborhood gets gentrified, and I think we're just at like the beginning of it. We're seeing a lot of younger families popping up. When we moved in, it was kind of the beginning of that, and we like everybody around us is retired and kind of just doing their thing, and so it's just a matter of time before it all kind of turns, and we're seeing that happening right now.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so now you've got your place, you're working on other projects. What do you what's your idea when you're looking at deals and when you're looking at projects? What's your kind of metric or focus that you're using right now?
So for us personally, right now where we're at is we want things that are single story because they're probably the most like flexible in how you can exit out of them or what you can do with them. Typically they're also easier projects, and then we're looking for things that are just priced reasonably to where we can come in and do a quick turnaround. We're keep and hold, so we're looking at
so you're not flipping and selling.
No, I'm not trying to flip and sell. I think for me and my family, it's if we can acquire as many houses as we can over the time, and maybe we trade off those houses and
after a few years
years just based on capital expenditures and expenses that are coming up on the houses, we assess it based on that. But I think we came up with that, and it took us some time to really come up with that, and it came with experience. But I think for people out there that are thinking about going in, jumping in, especially if it's your first place, the criteria is important, but I think it's the experience of just jumping in and getting into it. And I think jump in and get into it, but try to find something that's not going to be a huge undertaking. I think for us, the basement was a bigger undertaking than we thought it was going to be. It seems a lot easier, but there's so many nuances.
You looked at the house and you're like, okay, good roof, good foundation, just 900 square foot basement. That's going to be simple, right?
Simple. And there's so much to it, right? And I think that's the biggest thing is any big renovation like that is going to take more than you actually expect it to take. So for a first-time home buyer that's going to try to turn that first home into an investment, I would recommend more focusing on getting into something that you're going to be comfortable in, and that's going to be easily rentable if that's the goal.
Yeah.
And maybe just has some cosmetic updating to do, because you'll be able to take that on, and then that'll build up momentum for you to be able to want to do more in the future, right? You don't want to get stuck on your first project and it be a super negative experience.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's going to slow you down.
I mean, because you said you added a bathroom, which needs a permit, right? And then
everything needed a permit. Yeah, it was permit for the bathroom, permit for the
How was it
bedroom.
working with the city of Salem, though?
It wasn't too bad.
Because a lot of our listeners are in Portland and have had mixed experiences.
With Multnomah County.
Salem wasn't too bad. It was fairly easy. I mean, we had our projects come back a couple times. I used, just an app to be able to draw out my plans and send everything in. And it wasn't too bad. I mean, things aren't super fast. We weren't going super fast though. Yeah. So it was okay. I think if you're trying to go super fast, it might be a different experience. But for us, it was decent. And then we'd actually get a lot of feedback, and we were super explicit about us being super, new to it, not a lot of experience. And so,
but you're able to have straightforward communication with them.
Straightforward communication, be like, hey, I'm not licensed,
decent.
But it's my own house, and we want to do this, and this. What do we need to do? And what's code here? And so they would say, look, this is what you need. This is the code. And then they would send our review plans or our plans back from review, and they'd have specifics on what we needed to correct. And so then I could do it. And so, like I said, it was a great learning experience, and it wasn't that horrible. It was, pretty doable.
For this basement, because you said you might have it as a separate rental at some point.
Yeah.
Did you end up putting like a kitchen down there or a kitchenette?
It's a kitchenette. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
And can you explain the difference between a kitchenette and a kitchen?
Yeah, I mean, and basically it's per city, but basically what we needed to do is we just can't have an actual stove, right? So we have to have either a burner on the top. We can have a refrigerator. We could have a dishwasher. You can have a sink, but you can't have an actual full cooking stove down at the basement. And so it's just a countertop. There's no actual stove. There's a fridge, sink.
And what is the thinking behind that, just in terms of ventilation, or?
I think it's a safety protocol,
okay.
right? And maybe now you can, based on like the what is it, the ADU rules,
Right.
But when we were doing it, you couldn't have.
Oh, they told you could not.
You can't
put a
do
full
two kitchens in a house like that.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And then, did you get it permitted as an ADU as well?
No, it's just as an add-on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But you could easily go and do that if you were wanted to, or how does?
Don't quote me on that. I'm not sure if a basement could be turned into an ADU. But yeah, try to see if it can. If that's the goal, I think that's definitely something you should look into.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding in Portland,
You can. There's basements that people turn into
straightforward.
ADUs.
Yeah. As long as you have a separate entrance, right?
Yeah, there's detached ADUs and then ADUs that are
Attached.
attached. So, I mean, how do you feel about your prospects of renting with a kitchenette?
I don't think it's going to be an issue. I mean, I think our goal would probably be to short-term rental the property. So for us, you don't need a full kitchen.
Yeah. Have you looked into that market at all? Every time I look on Salem, it seems like there's like zero supply. It seems like a wide open market to me.
It is a wide open market. I have a couple friends that have some, and they do pretty decent. In the local area, I think you have a lot of commuting people coming into Salem with government workers and healthcare workers, and so for us that's interesting. We plan on trying it out when we're ready and seeing how the numbers look on Airbnb, and then if that doesn't work and it doesn't do what we want it to do financially, then we can go long term. And long term, we have experience with doing that, and we have an area where I think we could find somebody that could pay decent.
Nice. And yeah, don't write off midterm either as well.
Right.
We have someone that came on our show that was, what she really liked about it is that it wasn't in Portland, it was like in Vancouver. And so she got a lot of people that were staying there. I mean, she had a full house, but they were staying there from the neighborhood that didn't want to leave the neighborhood while they were doing a remodel or something like that for 30 days.
Also, like a lot of these cities have restrictions on 30 days or less.
Totally.
And just once you get over that 30-day mark, it's basically totally fine. And you don't need to get the permits or
Correct, yeah.
have any fines from the city.
Totally. And I've even seen, I mean, when I started doing some research on kind of the competition around for Airbnb, a lot of the houses in the Bush Park neighborhood, which there isn't many that do the Airbnb, had it listed for 30-day minimum stay.
Yeah.
And so you have to have it rented. Now, how that works or how strict that is, I'm not sure, but I'm sure that there's some flexibility on if somebody puts in the request to stay 30 days, but actually only needs to stay 15.
Oh, right. Oh, does Bush Park have an HOA or?
No HOA.
Oh, okay.
And one part of Bush Park area is going to be in the historic district, then there's an area that isn't part of the historic district.
Like a certain area. I got it.
And so those boundary lines, that's something to look into too. No matter where you're buying, historic district is going to come with a separate set of rules and restrictions and guidelines. And so whenever you are purchasing, especially in a neighborhood that's more established or an older neighborhood, see if it's historic or not, and see what that's going to look like, because it's going to slow down any renovations that you do. Luckily, where we're at, and we didn't even look into this, so we got super, super lucky, but luckily where we're at is Cross Street is where we're at, and High Street is the main road. But on Cross Street, this side, or the houses in front of us, are historic, and the houses on our side are not historic. So we're literally right on the borderline, and we got super, super lucky. Nobody looks, or they don't have as much attention on those houses as they do on the historic houses. If anybody starts doing any work on a historic home, I mean, just the neighbors alone are calling up and saying, "Hey, what's going on over here?"
Right.
So.
Yeah, because the idea with the historic district is that you have to preserve a certain facade for the
correct, yeah,
for everyone. So
and
any remodel project you do, you have to get
the neighborhood basically has to accept it. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I mean, it would have been a lot more difficult having it there. There is also benefits though to being in historic districts. My father-in-law is in the historic district, and there's actually grants that they provide for people doing exterior work. So he has his siding that he needs to redo, and he is putting in an application for a grant, and I think it's like a $7,500 grant, so that he can maintain. And essentially, it's to offset the cost of going to a new material that's maybe easier to install over conserving the look and sticking with a like older material.
Right. To use like cedar shake siding or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of okay, interesting.
T111.
Yeah. So, are you working on any new projects right now, or
currently we have a bigger project in mind that we want to do, and so right now we're just raising capital and staying conservative and patient. My wife is in the event industry, and so we really want to jump in and get some acreage and potentially turn it into a venue.
Oh, nice.
So that's really what's the biggest thing on our mind right now. And besides that, we have one project that we've been helping my father-in-law with, and it's a house in West Salem. It's a huge 3,200 square foot renovation.
Oh, wow.
And so that one, last year is when it was acquired, and it's been a pretty long project. He's GCing the whole thing. He's taking it on, and so we're just taking our time, and it's been super nice.
What's the game plan with that one with 3,200 square feet? Is that going to be like a long-term rental? That sounds like a lot of home for rental.
For rental, that one is a lot.
Yeah, is there renters for that in this market?
There is renters for that, and I think the only thing where we're kind of hesitant, and we'll see once it's finished, because we're also doing substantial renovation to it. We'll see if it makes sense to rent it or not. I think this one might be the one that we end up selling.
Yeah, like actually flipping it.
Actually flipping it, and it'll be a long-term flip. And so our goal is just to take about a year to do it, because we picked it up for pretty low cost, and the holding costs aren't that crazy. And so holding it for about a year so that we pass that short-term capital gains tax,
right,
and then being able to sell it is kind of where we're at. But that one, that'll be a cool project to kind of see come together all the way.
And what is this like a total gut job, or?
Yeah, so pretty much total gut job. Everything is going to be updated. I mean, the siding was even redone, the windows were redone, roofing was redone. So huge project, but a great house and great location, and we just got really lucky with the price on it, so it gives us a lot of flexibility.
So you mentioned you're looking at acreage. There's a lot of tertiary markets around Salem that have, great property, great acreage. Where is there a specific area that you're looking at?
I mean, for us, ideally, it would be somewhere probably closer to like Amity, McMinnville, kind of that area, because that's just where people want to go. We've also explored more on the west side of things, so maybe like going towards Staten, Sublimity, that area, even further north, Mount Angel, Silverton, anywhere over there. And then there's some smaller little areas above that have some more affordable acreage.
So in a place like that that's within, half an hour or whatever, 45 minutes of Salem, there's still going to be demand for like weddings.
For sure, yeah.
And what other type of events?
I think weddings is probably going to be the most you're going to see out there. But typically, I mean, I don't know, the wedding industry is where my wife is really diving into, and the wedding industry is just popping off. It's crazy how much people will pay for a venue and for a full wedding, and things are just getting booked. And it may be a huge kind of overflow of people that were waiting during the pandemic.
True, yeah.
Coming in, but I think it's just crazy. And she's been doing weddings for a long time. She started her business in Waco when we were in Texas, and then transitioned it over here, and it's been consistent. The only thing that's really changed is just with inflation, things have gotten so much more expensive. So it's crazy. Like, I think she works for a couple different venues or partners with them, to where she's like the preferred vendor or preferred event planner, coordinator. And there's one that just is opening up for this season, and it hasn't even been finished. And and I think she already has like 45 weddings booked.
Wow.
Holy cow.
Yeah, so the whole summer is
I mean,
booked.
that's basically, I mean, can you do that much more? Like,
No, yeah,
'cause there's only 52 weekends
Yeah.
a year, right? And a lot of those weekends you're not going to
You're not going to have a wedding. And
Yeah.
she has them booked. So she has 45 weddings booked. Some of them are for this year. Some of them are already for next year.
Okay.
But I think her going rate is $6,000 for a weekend.
And this is a brand new wedding space, or
Brand new wedding space.
And what did she do to create this? Like, what are you guys looking for to create a wedding space?
So what they did, I mean, they bought the property, and the house that was there was in decent shape, but it was,
Okay.
I mean, just
Whatever,
a lot
yeah.
of potential, right?
Uh-huh.
And so they built something like a barn dominion kind of a style, smaller house on the property.
Oh yeah, what is that barn? Okay, yeah, those like pole barn things.
Basically, it's
yeah.
like a pole barn, but it's built out to be a house, and
Okay.
you can host, and it could be turned into like an ADU, an Airbnb, whatever.
Right.
But that's where that space is going to be, and then they built out a nice huge deck, a landing pad, everything to kind of cater for events. And so they did that. I'm not completely sure how they did it. I know that they partnered with a family member to kind of get things going.
Mm-hmm.
But she had her design business, her interior design business, and event design business that she had, and then they're just transitioning into that.
Huh? Does it have like some spectacular views or anything?
It is a nice.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a nice view. Like, obviously it's acreage, so you're
Right.
just out in the middle of nowhere, and the things that they're putting in, she has her design, background, and so she's just making it really nice. And I think the cost of venues now, to book a venue for a weekend to have a wedding there, is so expensive that people are just trying to find really spaces that are still beautiful but not $15,000.
Yeah, I mean, and even when we got married back in 2011, I remember like the options for outdoor wedding
Yep.
venues were very small,
Yeah.
and very expensive.
Yep. Yeah. So, or they get booked, right?
Right. Or and they're booked out.
And they're
Exactly.
booked out. So, like you said, there's only so many weekends in the summer, and if there's a bunch of people getting married, it makes it to where you don't have that many options. And there's a bunch of different things with wedding venues and the different things that you can offer. But my wife, being in the industry, she kind of has all the experience and all the knowledge on it, and so we're really excited, and it's something that is also going to give us an opportunity to turn like a dream of living in a space like that into a business opportunity that can also essentially hopefully make us enough money to live there for free.
Right.
Oh, so you're planning to buy this acreage with the house you're going to live in and
Yeah.
have the event space
Yep.
where you can just
Yeah.
run the weddings.
Run the
You
weddings,
do
do the
like
events.
whatever 30 to 50 weddings a year.
Yep.
And then on the off season, maybe rent it out for
Yep.
a couples retreat or something like that.
Totally. And for me, for my industry, for my business, I think it's a space that I could do a lot of
Host
events,
parties
host
and-
parties, networking events, client, events. And so
Cool.
for us, it's just kind of a really good place that makes sense. And if we can live there for free, it's just like, it's makes a lot of sense.
I love that. So if you were to like recommend anyone that was interested in like, getting into investing or getting into real estate for the first time, what in this kind of climate, what would you say to them?
I think, like, I think I mentioned this earlier, but one of the main things is just, I don't think really looking at the exterior noises of things is as important as it is to look at your own personal financial situation, look at your goals, your aspirations, where you want to be, and then make a really good plan on your risk assessment, and like think about, okay, what's the worst case scenario that can happen here? Am I willing to take on that risk? If not, how can I mitigate some of that risk? And then talk to a professional, right? Get some guidance on it. Interview a couple people. Don't go with the first person you meet. And then start really narrowing down kind of your criteria, what you want to do. Get into something easy to start with. Get your finances right. Have some reserves, and just go. Like, you don't sit back and think about it too much. Just take action, because that's the only way you're actually gonna learn, right? And you can only do what you can with what you have in the moment.
Yeah.
You can't hope to have more or think you need more. Or
Right.
It's just do what you can with what you have. If you feel comfortable, take the leap, make it happen. And regardless of what the market condition is currently, if you're going to be buying multiple houses and your goal is to grow over time, it's not going to really matter. because you can't catch or time things no matter how much math you do. Like nobody can do that, right? So it's more about getting into it and getting going, and then over the long term, wealth is going to be built.
Yeah, makes sense.
And if people are looking to get a hold of you, what options do they have?
So they can call or text. That's pretty much the easiest way. My personal phone number is 541-981-1589. And if not, you can find me on Instagram at The Salem Broker, and or Facebook, The Salem Broker, the same way.
Great. Thanks so much, Kevin. Really appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Thanks.